Have you ever had that unsettling feeling of being watched? A prickling on your skin that something is just off? Tonight, we're diving into 3 stories from the corners of the internet that will make you question the safety of your own home and the intentions of the strangers you meet. These are tales that linger in the back of your mind long after you've heard them. Our first story comes from a Reddit user named Rabbit Folklore, and it's a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones that walk among us. When I was just a kid, there was one show I couldn't stand, Dora the Explorer. But the remote control was a complex puzzle my small hands couldn't solve, so I was often at its mercy. Whenever that cheerful, familiar song started, I'd usually just wander off and find something else to do. But this one time was different. My mom was in the shower. The familiar tune of the show started, and there was no one to change the channel for me. Just then, the doorbell chimed. Now, for some reason, and for the very first time in my young life, I felt a strange compulsion to answer it. I remember the weight of the heavy wooden door as I pulled it open. Through the screen, I saw a woman with blonde hair and dark sunglasses standing on our porch. "Hi," I said, with all the innocence a child could muster. She smiled and told me she was a friend of my mom's, and that my mom had said I needed to go with her. A flicker of doubt, a tiny voice of reason, made me pause. I told her I needed to double-check with my mom first. I walked down the hall to the bathroom and told my mother what the woman had said. In an instant, a wave of panic washed over her. She threw on a towel and sprinted to the front door, with me trailing behind her. But when we got there, the porch was empty. The woman was gone. Years later, my mom told me that I'd said the woman drove off in a pink car, though I'm not so sure I actually remember that detail. For me, the most disturbing part of this memory is the calculated nature of it all. The woman knew I was there with my mom. She knew our routine. She chose the perfect moment to strike, when I was alone and my mother was occupied. It feels as though she had been watching me, planning this for who knows how long. My mom has always held a chilling suspicion that it was the priest from a few houses down the street. He runs a church that feels more like a strict, isolated community. Every so often, my mind drifts back to that day. I think about what could have happened if I hadn't gone to get my mom, if I had opened that screen door. I still live in the same house, and thankfully, nothing as terrifying as that has ever happened again. That last story was a chilling reminder that human monsters can be waiting just outside our doors. But for our second tale, also from a user on Reddit, the source of the terror is far more ambiguous. This isn't a story of action or a dramatic chase. It's something quieter, something more unsettling. It's about a single, unexplainable moment that shattered a person's perception of reality. And what makes it truly terrifying is that it comes from a self-professed skeptic, someone who doesn't believe in the paranormal. He starts his story by setting the scene for us. He was about 9 or 10 years old, a self-described scaredy cat, and he was home alone on a bright, sunny afternoon. His house is important to the story. It's a large home, built on 3 levels. Upstairs are the bedrooms. The middle level holds the main living room and kitchen, and at the bottom there's a basement that his father used as a music studio, with a dark storage closet tucked under the stairs. He came downstairs from his bedroom into the living room, just going about the lazy, aimless routine of a 10-year-old. Across the room, he saw his cat, but something was off. Instead of being curled up asleep on the couch as usual, the cat was standing, completely alert, staring intently out the window. He didn't think too much of it at the time. He loved his cat, so he walked across the living room to go pet her. A simple act that he would come to regret. He was stroking her fur for a few moments when a sound echoed up from the basement stairway, a sound that made his heart stop cold. It wasn't the normal creak of a settling house. No, this was a groan. A deep, guttural groan that he struggles to describe to this day. He says it sounded like a groan of curiosity, but at the same time, like the final rattling breath of a dying old woman. And it was loud. So loud he was instantly convinced a person had to be in the house. Yet the sound wasn't entirely human. He froze. Absolute, paralyzing terror washed over him. He didn't scream, he didn't run. He just snapped his head around to face the dark opening of the basement stairs. The sound had stopped. It was just one single groan, and then silence. But the silence was now heavy, filled with dread. He was sure someone had broken in. His first instinct was to hide, and the only place he could think of was the upstairs bathroom, the only room with a lock on the inside. But to get there, he had to make a terrifying journey. He had to walk back across the entire length of the living room, passing right by the top of the stairs from where that horrifying sound had come. It was the quietest he has ever moved in his life. Every step was deliberate, silent. He says he didn't dare look down into the darkness, terrified of what he might see looking back up at him. He made it. He slipped into the bathroom, locked the door, and collapsed onto the floor, pressing his back against it. After that moment, his memory becomes foggy, almost dreamlike. He thinks he may have called his parents, but he can't be sure. It was as if his mind simply shut down until he woke up to the sound of them arriving home. Of course, they searched the house. Nothing was out of place, nothing was stolen. And here's the detail that makes this story so impossible to explain. His family had a guard dog, a massive Bukovina shepherd. A dog so territorial, he says it's doubtful anyone could have even gotten into the yard, let alone the house itself, without it raising hell. Years later, now a teenager, he remains a skeptic about the paranormal, but he has never, ever been able to explain what he heard that day. He says even just retelling the story brings back the chills, the memory of being more terrified than he has ever been in his life. We've heard about a threat from the outside and a mystery from within. For our final story tonight, we delve into something else entirely. This isn't about a single moment of terror. This is about a slow, creeping invasion. It's an account from a Reddit user that started with something small, something easily dismissed, and escalated into a series of events so terrifying they are now genuinely concerned for their safety in their own home. It's a chilling reminder of what happens when the unsettling feeling doesn't go away, and instead begins to interact back. This all started about a month ago, the user writes, on a day with absolutely no wind. I went out to the garage and I gave the heavy door a solid push, letting it swing inward. I stepped inside and was immediately hit with an icy wave of unexplainable dread. I shook it off, opened the fridge to grab a drink, and when I turned around, the garage door was swinging. Back and forth, slow, deliberate, and impossible. I grabbed what I needed and bolted, a sudden horrifying feeling washing over me that the door was about to slam shut behind me. For a week or two after that, things were quiet. Just little things, you know? The prickling sensation of being watched, the feeling of a presence just over your shoulder. The kind of thing you can easily convince yourself is just your imagination. Then it got bolder. My dad took our dog for a walk, leaving me home alone. All the doors were locked. I was just chilling on my phone when I heard it. The unmistakable click of my dog's leash being taken off his collar, followed by the familiar sound of him shaking his body. I called out for my dad, assuming he was back early. No answer. Then I heard shuffling in the kitchen. I figured he just didn't hear me. About 10 minutes passed. I called out his name again. Still, only silence. I finally walked into the kitchen to find it completely empty. The silence was deafening. My dad didn't get home for another 5 minutes. When I told him, he just brushed it off. It began to mimic voices. My grandma, who has Alzheimer's, was supposed to come over one day. I knew she was coming. Suddenly, I heard my nan's voice clear as day, saying bye to my mom downstairs. I was confused, thinking she'd arrived and was now leaving again. I went down to say hello, only to find no one there. The house was empty. My mom arrived with my grandma 30 minutes later. Then came the physical evidence. I woke up one morning, and as I was getting changed, I saw it. A perfect handprint on my upper thigh. My own hand hadn't been there. I placed my own hand over it to compare, and the print was smaller than mine by a decent amount. But the most active, the most terrifying night of my life happened when my friend was sleeping over. We decided to go read in the field outside our house. We were gone for about 2 hours. When we came back, my sister was sitting on the hammock outside, and she looked at us with a really confused expression. I asked her what was wrong. She said, "How long were you guys gone?" "About 2 hours," I replied. Her face went pale. "That's so creepy," she whispered. "I literally heard you guys laughing and shuffling around in your room the whole time." Me and my friend just froze, looking at each other in sheer terror. Later that night, around 11 o'clock, we went downstairs to make popcorn. As I was walking back from the cupboard, I saw it. For a good 3 seconds, a face was peeking out from behind the wall near the door. It was a little child, couldn't have been more than 10. He was Hispanic, and he had weirdly void-like, empty eyes. It ducked back behind the wall and vanished. We screamed and ran upstairs, taking refuge in my parents' bedroom right at the top of the stairs. A little while later, we decided we wanted to play cards, but the cards were in my room, all the way at the other end of the long hallway. We decided to make a run for it. Halfway down the hall, that icy feeling returned, but 100 times stronger. The distinct, terrifying sensation of being followed. I whipped my head around and yelled that I thought something was there, and we sprinted the rest of the way, grabbed the cards, and ran back. About 2 minutes later, my sister burst into my parents' room. "Guys," she said, "I want to tell you something, but I don't want to scare you." I told her to just say it. She took a breath and said, "When I was still on the hammock, I could see the light in the hallway through the window. I saw you two run out of my parents' room, and about 2 seconds after you came out, I saw a third figure start to follow you down the hall before it ducked down the stairs." Me and my friend looked at each other, the blood draining from our faces. My sister said it was a black shadow figure, about 5.5 feet tall. We were being followed, and if I hadn't turned around in that hallway, God knows what would have happened. I still get that eerie feeling all the time in the house now, the feeling that I'm constantly being watched. This isn't a joke. I'm genuinely concerned. A calculating stranger at the door, an impossible sound from the darkness of a basement, and a presence that grew from a whisper in the garage to a shadow figure in the hallway. 3 stories from 3 different people, all bound by a common, terrifying thread: the invasion of their safest space. What do you do when the world inside your walls becomes more frightening than the world outside? How do you find closure for something you can't explain? These accounts remind us that sometimes the most terrifying places are the ones we're supposed to feel the most secure in. They linger with us because, on some level, we've all felt that unexplained chill or heard that bump in the night, and for a fleeting moment wondered, what if I'm not alone? Let us know what you think of these stories in the comments below. Have you ever experienced anything like this? What would you do in their situation? Thank you for joining me in the shadows tonight. If you want to hear more chilling, true accounts, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. My name is Silas Kane. Stay safe and always trust your instincts.